Hello everyone, welcome to the debut video on the new channel here, Hank's Movie Ranks. I'm Hank, I watch a lot of movies, figured why not make a little channel to start ranking them and see if this goes anywhere. One of the projects I've been kind of working on in terms of movie watching recently over the last couple months has been to watch all of the Best Picture nominees from 2010 to current, basically all the ones ever since the nominee maximum changed from 5 Best Picture nominees to 10. Ever since that's happened, trying to go through all those nominees. And obviously, with this video, I'll be ranking the most recent year's nominees, and then going forward as I watch the other lineups and get through all those, probably do individual videos for each of those years, and maybe then comparing each of the lineups against each other, ranking the winners, etc. We'll kind of just have to see what I ended up deciding on that. But yeah, as you can tell by the title of this video, I'm starting off with this most recent year, 2025, from the 2024 movies and 2025 ceremony nominees. This lineup of 10, I think, is overall pretty strong group. I would say that there's 9 movies that I enjoy. I think are pretty good movies, deserving nominations. Then there's one that we'll get to at number 10. Not so much, but as a whole, I think it's a pretty good lineup. So let's just jump right into it. At number 10, I have Emilia Perez. If you know anything about this past year's Oscars and some of the controversies around it and the movies that people weren't big fans of, this ranking comes as no surprise. I don't think this is a hot take to say that Emilia Perez is the worst of the bunch. I honestly don't know if I've seen someone have a list where it's not number 10. But yeah, I mean, I think it's for good reason. I think it kind of just fails on a lot of the different facets it is trying to cover. I think the conceptual idea is interesting enough of this cartel leader and then wanting to transition from a male into a female, and kind of, obviously some of the struggles that can come from that, especially having such a prominent role as like a cartel leader. I think there's an inherent interesting idea within that. I think they fail the execution completely. I think that it shows the idea of her wanting to make the transition as more of like a get out of jail free card to escape the cartel life, as opposed to something that she's really been struggling with as an idea, which I think is really not a great way to depict that. And then obviously I'm not the most qualified person to speak on the transgender representation in this movie or the representation of Mexico in this movie, but from what I've seen online, both members of those communities aren't very big fans of this film, have said that it doesn't represent them very well, and I think, based off seeing the movie, I agree. I don't think it represents them in a light where you'd be like, oh, yeah, that's a good representation of us on film. So, and then when you see that validation from people actually in those communities saying that it's not good, I think it just completely fails then to represent its main themes and people that it's trying to. And then also it's a musical for, in my opinion, no reason. Some of the ideas with the musical pieces, some of the choreography is interesting, but the problem is you can't really have a musical with 0 good songs, and that's what I think this movie is. There's maybe 1 or 2 that I think are like fine, and the rest are just bad. Most of the songs in this are like them just kind of like mumbling or like humming and just straight up talking, but with a slight like skippy beat in the background. I don't enjoy any of the musical scenes. I think the direction here is just terrible. The only good things are some of the cinematography, some of the choreography, and some of the performances here. But otherwise, as a whole, I think this movie just kind of fails completely in every single thing that it's trying to do. Moving on to number 9. Again, before I go with this, number 9 I think is a good movie, and it's The Substance. I think that there's 9 good movies here, and The Substance, I think, is one of them. However, I just like the other 8 a little bit more. The Substance, I think, is a good exploration of how kind of the standards in today's world, and how for some people, especially people as they get older, if certain abilities they have start to diminish, they kind of just get like thrown out in a way. So obviously Demi Moore's character in this, who she gives a great performance in this, seeks out drug to have a better version of herself. And also Mark Qualley, who plays that younger version of her, also is fantastic. The two lead performances here are great, and really carry this movie, and is what makes this movie as strong as it is. That being said, the reason it's just a little lower is because it is so weird. That's why I can see it's very polarizing. I can see why tons of people would have it number one, because some of it's just so crazy and some people can love that. And I enjoy it. It's just kind of, obviously, I fall in the middle of some of the people who would hate that stuff, some of the people who love that. It kind of evens out to me where I'm like, oh, that's very interesting, that's fun, but it's not something I'm inherently like, oh yeah, that's my favorite of the movies from this. There's a lot of body horror and gore. But that being said, I think it's really cool that this is a film that is nominated, because it's so out there comparatively to a lot of the other stuff that's usually nominated for Best Picture. So while I might have it a little bit lower on this list, I still think it's good. And I'm very happy that it is a nominated film from this year. Number 8, I have The Brutalist. The Brutalist is really held together by its super amazing lead performance by Adrien Brody. You can obviously understand why he won. He plays that role fantastically. And the directing here and the score, especially, just a lot of the technical aspects are great. Why it's bumped down to 8 for me out of these 10 is just because it's very long. It's 3.5 hours. It is a built-in intermission. And that's not inherently a problem for me. A lot of longer movies that don't feel like they're longer and clip along at a much quicker pace are perfectly fine with me. It's just this one, as I mentioned, there's the built-in intermission. The first half, I think, is fantastic. It's really interesting exploration of kind of the American dream and how Laszlo has to work his way in as an immigrant and an architect and find his role and eventually start to thrive a little bit. However, I think the second half after the intermission happens is just not quite as interesting. That's what bumps it down a little bit for me on this list. If that second half was as strong as the first, it'd probably up there 4, 3 maybe, but up there higher in this list. But I just think the second half falters a little bit more. Still interesting. Obviously, I would give a positive review to this. And like I said, the technical aspects and the filmmaking of it all is fantastic. But there's just some pieces that I'm not as drawn into the story in the second half, and that's just why it's a little bit lower. Moving on to number 7, I have Nickel Boys. Nickel Boys is a very, very interesting film to watch, I will say. It's maybe the most impressively made film on this list because it is shot entirely in the first-person perspective of our 2 lead boys. It's about 2 African-American boys. One of them, who is a lot of promise, is looking to go to a college, and he gets wrongfully accused of a crime, and they're sent to a reform school in Florida where they are not treated well at all. And it's a very kind of tough subject matter, obviously, to watch and see. Like, I can't believe this is a thing that actually happened in America, and more recently than it should be. And still, there's some problems with stuff like this that happen today. So it's a very, obviously, important film to see and get the message from. But I think just part of that, kind of the tough, like, subject matter to watch is maybe what just brings it down a little bit from really, because there's not a whole lot of, hope in this film, but inherently, as there shouldn't be. It's meant to be that way, and they do it well, but it just makes it kind of a bit of a tougher watch to get into. But I'm making it sound like it's not a good film. It's a fantastic film. It's, like I said, it maybe is the most important one in this 10. It's probably the most impressive one, technically, in terms of an actual true filmmaking perspective on this list. Everything about it is great, and while it obviously isn't going to give you the big, like, hurrah moments and get you excited, it's still a very intriguing story, and to watch and just follow these boys on this journey that they're on and see some of the stuff that they have to deal with. So it's fantastically made. But it's just, there's a couple more that I had a little more fun with, enjoyed watching a little bit more. So that's why it's here at 7. At number 6 is A Complete Unknown. Now, if I'm talking specifically of, like, as I mentioned in the last one, what are the most impressively made films, A Complete Unknown is probably a little higher than it should be. It's a pretty straightforward musical biopic film. If you've seen ones like it before, you're not really going to see anything that's very new here. It's pretty tried and true with its formula. That being said, I really enjoy movies with music, good music, as we established earlier with Amelia Perez. And they have fantastically done music here. The performances are great. Monica Barbaro and Timothy Chalamet in those main lead spots, and Elle Fanning and Edward Norton in their roles as well. Everyone kind of kills it in the roles that they have here. And I think that takes the kind of just general musical biopic template that everyone's come to know and elevates it a bit because of the great performances, not only just in the acting itself, but in the music as well. I think it makes it a lot more enjoyable than it would be normally as just kind of an average music biopic. And I just had a lot of fun with it. I really enjoyed it. It was just kind of like a nice, cozy watch when you watch it. And it's also an interesting story about this time in Bob Dylan's life when he was kind of revitalizing folk music, getting some backlash for it, and then also getting some big fans from him. So it's kind of a cool one to watch, and that's why it's up here at 6. There's still just 5 more that I enjoy more. Getting into the top 5, we have I'm Still Here. I'm Still Here is an international film, with the whole film being in Portuguese as it takes place in Brazil. It takes place during the Brazilian governmental dictatorship of the 70s, I believe. It follows a family has the father is a former politician from Brazil, and because of this, he is taken for questioning by members of the dictatorship, and we never hear from him or see him again. And it's mostly following the perspective of the mother, played by Fernanda Torres, who gives a standout performance in this and really is the life force and driving power in this movie. It's really great getting to see her kind of navigate through this whole situation, whether it's as a grieving wife, as a supportive mother, or as even in certain cases in kind of being a detective in a way, trying to figure out exactly what has happened to her husband and just trying to keep the whole family together during all of this. I think it does a really good job of putting you in the time period, making you feel like you're really viewing the family and seeing everything that they're going through in depth. And overall, I think it's just really well made, and glad it ended up getting the international feature win at the Oscars over Amelia Perez, because as we can see, I have it ranked a lot higher than that film. Moving on to number 4, we have the good musical of the lineup, in my opinion, Wicked. Wicked, as I mentioned, it's the good musical of these two lineups, and because the songs here are fantastic. Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande absolutely kill it in their roles, and their songs. The Defying Gravity scene towards the end might be the best scene in any of these movies. It's certainly up there. As some people don't love the lighting or coloring in the film or whatever, but I think the production design and the costumes and everything technically all look great. I think it's a fun movie to look at. It's just a fun time. This is another one where it's a lot longer, but I feel like it clips by a lot quicker than its runtime actually would show. And overall, it's just a fun movie. This movie's a lot of fun, really enjoyable to get through, and the actors playing their roles very well, translating it from the theater to the screen. While I haven't actually seen the play myself, it's a fantastic rendition, I think, the movie. So hopefully the sequel here, Wicked for Good, coming up later this year, can continue on its strengths from the first one and kind of take the story home. But yeah, this one, I mean, there's not a whole lot to say about it, I guess, other than just I think it's a really fun time. There's some flaws with it probably, but I think it looks really cool, and the music's great. The songs actually continue the story. It doesn't feel like you just pause the movie, have your musical number, and then continue the movie back from where it was. It feels like the actual scenes of the musical numbers like carry the plot forward, which is something that I think is a big problem in Emilia Perez, for example. But yeah, I think this just flows really well. I think the performances are great. The music's obviously fantastic. And it's just a really fun time. So that's why I have it up here, and I enjoy it a lot. Moving into our top three, we have Conclave. Conclave is, in a way, kind of a courtroomy type of drama, with the inherent nature of the conclave process for the Catholic Church, with everyone kind of jockeying for power, trying to either get the role of Pope or get the candidate they want nominated to win the papacy. And I think it's just a fun time. You have a great ensemble of actors here, really eating up the screenplay here with the really snappy dialogue. And anytime you have a film with some really quick-witted, snappy dialogue, and you have great actors to play it out, I love movies like that. I think they're fantastic, and this one is a great example of that. Stanley Tucci, Ralph Fiennes, John Lithgow all play their roles fantastically, and take this fantastic trip and make it work pretty well, if I do say so myself. So, and it's also a beautiful looking movie. The sound in it is great. So all around, just a really enjoyable movie that I had a lot of fun with, and I always love movies like that where there's a competition in a way, or there's just a lot of kind of dialogue scenes with people going back and forth. So this movie has a lot of both of those aspects, so I enjoy it a lot. Moving on to number two. I had a really hard time deciding between 1 and 2 here, just because they're such different films. One's a big studio sci-fi blockbuster, one's a independent film that's a lot more personal and just not as big of a scope, I would say. And then just kind of by my nature, you can kind of see with some of the stuff behind me here, I'm more drawn to some of those big blockbuster type of films. So I think the fact that they're so close together and basically 1A, 1B says a lot. But at number 2, I am going to go with Anora, the winner of Best Picture from this year, and I think it's a completely deserving win. I have no problems with it winning at all. I think the ensemble cast is great here. The screenplay is great. It's really crazy. You think the movie's going one way, and then it kind of subverts, and then you think it's going another way, and then it kind of subverts into something else. I just really enjoyed the ride with this movie. I think it's a fun time. There's a lot of very memorable scenes. I think, like I said, the performances are great, and I feel like this one clips along pretty quick. Like, you never feel the length of this film or anything along those lines. I think it's just a really fun time, and very, very deserving winner of Best Picture and all the awards that it got. Happy that this one was nominated and allowed me to watch it and get a really enjoyable movie. But at number 1, I am going to go with Dune Part 2. I mean, like I said, I'm a big fan of the action movies, the sci-fi movies, the big blockbusters, and this one is one of the best ever, probably. I loved the first Dune. I think this improves upon that. Hopefully Dune Messiah continues to do that. But yeah, I mean, there's not really a whole lot more to say about this that if you've seen it, you don't already know. I mean, visually, it looks fantastic. The visual effects here, it's like, do I even have to say anything? Obviously, they're like some of the best of all time. The music here and the sound is awesome. And even in a movie where it's this big sci-fi epic and a massive cast, I think everyone plays their roles to a T. Like for Timothée Chalamet, for example, obviously as the lead of Paul Atreides, he, I think, improved from his performance in the first one even. And yeah, just overall, I think it's Dune. I mean, it's what else is there to expect? It's Denis Villeneuve directing a giant sci-fi epic. It's gonna be awesome, and this one is. So for those reasons, I have it at number 1. So that's my ranking of the 10 films from the Best Picture lineup here in 2025. If I obviously will continue as I watch the other lineups to do my top 10 lists for those years. But if anyone actually ends up seeing this video and watching, and you've got to this point, leave a comment below of some other rankings you want me to do, whether that's a Pixar one or a Marvel one, or I could rank some Batman films, Star Wars films, really whatever. I have a couple other ideas aside from the Best Picture ones, but if you guys have any others, let me know, and I'll see what I can do about those. So yeah, so that's the first video on the channel, and hopefully we can keep growing a little bit with each one that comes out.